Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase. I'm your host, Chad Robert Morgan, on the mend from his accident at Monsterpalooza. And let's start with the news. Wanted to show off, first of all, that fellow indie author Jennifer Mill of Plain Princess Jane has just won the Indie Brag Medallion. Now, the Indie Brag Medallion Award has been seen on this show before. Megan Haskell was showcased about a year ago. We didn't showcase the book that won the award, but she too is a Indie Brag Medallion winner. And let's see, who is the other person on the show that has won the Indie Brag? Yes, this guy for The Baby Eater. So, Jennifer, welcome to the club. As I'm recording this podcast, we are a day late. This should have been aired yesterday, but I just got busy and I didn't have time to do the podcast. I did warn this before. Basically, I've had to take a second job because the bills are coming in faster than my income. So I was scrambling to find time, and I finally found a little niche of time on Saturday morning to do the podcast. Bad news is, it's supposed to be aired Friday. So, instead of airing it late or changing the date, what we're going to do is we're going to bank this episode, and we are going to schedule it to air this Friday. So, when this podcast airs, I will be on the road to Fresno for Hauntmare Expo. So, come out and see us then. We will have all of our books. We'll have our big giant 3D printed monsters fully painted. We'll have our small little glow-in-the-dark ones. We'll have our t-shirts. I'm really hoping this will do good. The good news about Hauntmare Expo is the booth fees are rather low. And in fact, they actually reached out. They saw one of the little clips that I do. So a little bit of context. I do the podcast and I feed it to a program called Opus Clip. What Opus Clip does is, using AI, will scan the video and say, okay, this looks like a good clip. And then it will auto subtitle it. Sometimes it even gets all the names spelled right. And then it will post it to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. So I get a lot of publication. I get a lot of press, a lot of social media content generation that way. It's very quick, very easy. And the people at Hauntmare Expo saw a small clip from a previous podcast where we were talking about how inexpensive Hauntmare Expo is. And they replied back saying, yes, we are not looking to make profit off our vendors, right? Their goal is they're paying for the space, right? Which is the Fresno Fairgrounds. So they have divvied up that cost among the vendors. So, basically you have an area that say it holds 10 vendors, right? And it costs $1,000. And again, I'm pulling random numbers out of my butt for demonstration purposes. This is not how much things cost. But let's say you got a vendor space that holds 10 people, costs you $1,000. Their philosophy is you charge every vendor $100. Therefore, you're breaking even. They're looking to make money off of the ticket sales for the people coming there, right? And that makes a certain amount of sense because the more people that show up, the more people that, the more popular it is, the more successful they're going to be. So their big goal is to drive traffic, which means they want to have good vendors. They want to have as many vendors as they can. They want to have the best guests that they can have, because that's usually what drives people to these conventions is the guests. People are going there to see people like John Bernthal, which has been at Creep.ie. They want to go see Tim Curry, who's going to be at Son of Monsterpalooza. So real briefly, let's take a look at who's actually going to show up at Hauntmare Expo. We're going to have Daniel Roebuck, who played Grandpa on the Munsters, the Rob Zombie remake of the Munsters. We will have Juco Bailey from The Grudge, Thomas Matthews from The Return of the Living Dead, Christine Ellis from Child's Play 2 and the Child's Play TV series. We will have Eddie Denson from Critters 2. I actually remember Critters 2. I love critters from when I was a child in the 80s. I watched the entire franchise. Um, we have Kevin Kepi from Smile, and many, many more. So they're also going to have 8 different scare mazes to go through, which would be really great. The only They did the same thing in um, halfway to Halloween. They had some really good scare mazes. What The only other convention that I know that actually does that is Midsummer Scream. They'll have a whole section of the Long Beach Convention Center just for scare mazes. Creep IE did have one scare maze last time, but Hauntmare Expo had a whole floor of all these little mini scare mazes. So I'm really looking forward to that. That should be exciting. So fingers crossed that this is going to be a really good convention. I'm really optimistic. Even though the price is low, when you add to the fact that I have to travel up there, get a hotel, that still makes it less pricey than many of the other conventions that I've done. It's still cheaper than, say, Monsterpalooza. It's probably still a little bit cheaper than Creep IE, but the $550 for the booth fee plus the hotel room, it just, you got a little bit more extra to make before you even break even. So fingers crossed it goes well. I'm really excited to kind of get out of the Orange County, LA area, just because, not that there's anything wrong with this area, but it's just, I'm starting to see some of the same faces, and I want to try to expand my reach and get some new fans. And which is funny because when I go to Hauntmare Expo, some of these people are driving down from places like Fresno to see Monsterpalooza. So we'll see. But again, fingers crossed that this will be a really big event, that I will have a lot of sales and new fans, and we'll see how it goes. So what this actually means, though, is next week I will probably not do a podcast because I will be at Hauntmare Expo. So this podcast will air next week. The week after that, what I'm hoping I can do is I can do kind of a Here Is Me at Hauntmare Expo and post that in place of a regular podcast. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how busy it is. I can't make promises. But hopefully there'll be other horror authors that I'll be able to meet and showcase while I'm there. So there was one issue I wanted to cover that I actually forgot about. So I'm getting back to this. There's been on the internet some weird conspiracy that if your novel has M dashes in it, they're AI generated. I don't know where this idea came from. I just want to state for the record, my books have M dashes in them all over the place. My editor has suggested that I replace my dashes with M dashes. So I actually went through with my final edit and actually did that. When I type, I think this is where it comes from, because when you type, you don't do an M dash, right? You hit the dash button, that line where you use to separate your thoughts, kind of thing. So the M dash has got to, I don't know what the key is to actually hit an M dash. I couldn't tell you. When you hit the dash button, you just get a dash. I'm not even sure what the difference between a dash and an M dash is, other than the M dash seems to be bigger. Okay. But I can tell you that when I write, I'm hitting the dash, and then my editor keeps telling me, convert your dashes to M dashes. So, and the editorial process, those get converted. So my book has M dashes all over the place. Not AI generated. Okay. So let's put that controversy to bed. I don't know where that started. It's BS. Okay. So while we're on the topic, I want to broach a question. Is it bad to use AI in your writing? Now, I'm not talking about going to ChatGPT or Claude AI and saying, write me a 300-page book hit the button, and then throwing it on Amazon. Okay, that's bullshit. If you're doing that, why are you even bother being a writer, right? That's not writing. That's just generating AI slop, right? What I'm talking about is more along the line of AI assisted writing. Like, for example, I would, because I've experimented a little bit with AI. I will, like, for example, write a chapter of Intergalactic Space Force, right? I'm working on the third book. Write a chapter, write it all out, and then I'll send it to Claude AI. Say, what do you think? What are your suggestions? Sometimes it comes out with some really good ideas. Most of the time, it comes out with bullshit ideas. A lot of times, it comes out with the same ones. It's like, you should make the more uh, comments about what the scene looks like, and it's like, no, it's a comedy book. We don't need to focus on the minutia of how the door works. That's not important. Um, Sometimes I'll make suggestions, and I'll say, okay, can you write this scene for me? And usually, when it does a scene, it usually does a job, but it gives me something to work off of. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, that's not great, but I got the idea of what you're trying to say, and maybe I can play with that a little bit and move on from there. I also find it useful if you have a bit of writer's block, right? I did that a lot when I was working on Fear. Like, there was one scene when I was at the hospital, and I knew what had to happen, right? I knew um, Tammy and Selena had to have this conversation, and I wasn't sure how to get started. And so I went to, I think, Claude or ChatGPT and said, write this for me. And what it wrote was way more um, simple, and it was like sitcom-y. Like, it came to a conclusion. I didn't want to conclude it. I wanted to kind of hint and move the story along, but this wasn't a short story. This was just a chapter. It came to too much of a conclusion kind of thing. It was like, but it gave me a few ideas of how to get the thing started, and it kind of broke me out of that writer's block, right? So in that sense, I don't think there's anything wrong with using AI as a tool. Again, I'm not saying make, have AI do it for you, but as an editor, as something to bounce ideas off of, yeah, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you were stuck and you were asking a friend, hey, what do you think of this idea? Or if you had a chapter and you had a friend read it and ask them for feedback, how is that different than asking the AI? It's not right. So let me know what you think. Is AI a useful tool? Should it be banned? I don't even know how you can ban it. Like, if you're running a grammar check, like running it through Grammarly, isn't that AI? Where do we draw the line? Where do we go from, okay, I got this chapter and I want some ideas on how to punch it up, to have the AI write it for you? Where do we draw this? Where's the deviation? Let me know what you think. But yeah, this whole in dash being AI generated thing, let's put that to bed. That's bullshit right there. All right. So that's the news. That's the updates. Um, we are going to keep things a bit short because, again, I am really the my time is not my own these days. I still got a lot of work. I'm still struggling to get Fear the audiobook done. I still have several chapters that need to be re-recorded, and as I just mentioned, I am running out of time. Um, I am spending most of my nights driving for Uber to try to pay off the mountain of medical debt that this family has incurred, to pay off some of the fees that I have paid for some of these conventions that I either didn't break even on or that I didn't make any sales on, like Vampire Weekend. That was a huge loss. That was like $500-$600. I was just gone. Didn't make a dime on that one. And some other things. There's like $3,000 in vet bills and this pile of debt too. So it's just car repair bills, that kind of thing. So my time is painfully short, so these podcasts are probably going to get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. But I still want to do them because I still think it is important to showcase other indie authors to get their exposure out there, to let you, the audience, know, hey, there's some really cool books coming down the pipe or that are out there that you might not have heard of. And that's the whole point of the podcast. So we're going to try to keep that going as much as possible. This week we are showcasing The Princess and the Dragon by Nicolette Andrews. So I've met her several times at WonderCon. And her books are romance books that are very anime inspired. So again, this was one of the things where I'm kind of going a little bit out of my wheelhouse to try to expand what we showcase here on the podcast. I did find it enjoyable. It was kind of like if I was reading the novelization of something like Inuyasha, if you remember that series. So there was a lot of Japanese mythology. It was in more of a feudal Japan era. Feudal Japan era, not error. See, I'm still, the lips are still healing. I still have trouble sometimes. My lips do not always work the way I want them to do. Makes re-recording the audiobook a little bit of a challenge. So, getting back to the showcase. So the plot of the story is we have a very spoiled princess that has fallen out of favor with her father, the emperor. The emperor basically had married her mother, which is one of his wives or consorts or whatever, and fathered several children through her, and then caught her in an affair. So he disowned her, disowned all the kids he had with her. And so this princess, who was going to marry this older general and be basically in comfort for the rest of her life, is now having to be a priestess for this mountain god, right? And she's basically going through the motions. She don't buy any of this crap. Except the problem is when they wed her to the mountain god wakes up. And it turns out the mountain god is a dragon that has been imprisoned there for several hundred years. And the dragon believes that the priestess is the reincarnation of the priestess that imprisoned him, because only that priestess could free him. So he goes on a thing where he's going on a vengeance quest, but it gets a little more complicated because it turns out that the priestess that imprisoned him was his girlfriend, and they might have a kid together. So the emotions get a bit complicated. So the two of them go on this trek as the dragon is now got a quest for vengeance. He's going to track down all the descendants of this priestess that imprisoned him. He's still trying to figure out how this gal let him out of his prison, whether she's the reincarnation or she's not the reincarnation, because she doesn't seem like she's the reincarnation, but she's got her powers. So how do we square this circle? And that's part of the crux of the book. So the one downside to the book that I felt was it did feel like the novelization of a television series. In other words, there seemed to be all these little, instead of one big arc, there's all these little like mini arcs that kept going like this, right? So we would have the dragon would wake up, and we would have several chapters of him figuring out what he's going to do. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do, and then they finally go on their quest. They would have several arcs, several chapters of them meeting this creature in the swamp, and we're setting up the big bad of the book on here, and so we move on to there. Then um, several chapters of them dealing with another threat. They move on. They several chapters of dealing with another threat, and so on until finally we reach the conclusion. So um, it did feel like it was a novelization of episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. Um, again, very very anime style of writing, because I mean, if you've ever watched something like Inuyasha, um, that's not uncommon in a TV series like that. There is an overarching story, but it's they'll do 3 or 4 episodes dealing with one story, and then it moves on to like chapter 2, and there's 3 or 4 dealing with that, and so on and so forth. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. I did like it more than I thought I would. Again, romance isn't my thing. I don't have a problem with the anime part. I did think that the little, mini arc thing wasn't quite my vibe, but I got what she was going with it. So again, trying to keep with that anime feel, I think it worked. Um, so overall, yeah, check it out. It's The Priestess and the Dragon, and that's available on ebook, paperback, audiobook, you name it, the whole 9 yards. And if you get a chance, again, I've seen her a couple times here at Anaheim at WonderCon. So come visit WonderCon, and you might get a chance to meet her and get an autographed copy. So there you go. So again, these podcasts are getting shorter and shorter. I am running out of time. As you can hear, the family is not letting me record. I got squeaky toys in the back from the dog. I got angsty teenagers who want to go out and start smooching with their girlfriends. So yeah, we're getting shorter and shorter. Join us next week at Hauntmare Expo, which will be ironically the same weekend this one records. Hopefully I'll see you there. Our next event after Hauntmare Expo will be Creep IE Aftermath. Remember, use promo code Spectral to get $5 off your one-day admission into Creep IE. Again, after talking with Elliot over at Monster Palooza, I think those are the tickets that are going to sell more than anything else right now, because with the economy, people are no longer buying the multi-day passes as much as they were. They still want to go, but they want to kind of minimize their expenditures. So instead of going for the entire weekend, they just pick the one day that they really want to go. And it's usually the day that the celebrity that they want to see the most is going to be there. So see us over at Creep IE Aftermath. Use promo code Spectral. If you're in the Fresno area or within driving distance of Fresno, see us like now, tomorrow, when this airs. And we look forward to seeing you at the Fresno Fairgrounds. So until then, we'll see you next week, or actually in 2 weeks probably, because we'll be at the convention. So until then, keep on reading.